Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Eating at a Meeting. I am your host, Tracy Stockrath. I'm actually here live at 𝐤𝐬𝐬𝐻. I'm going to flip my screen down there, and that's the exhibit hall floor that opened up today. I'm excited to come to you live from the show. And I just wanted to I didn't want to miss this episode because I'm at 𝐤𝐬𝐬𝐻, because I think it's a really important topic, and I'm so excited to introduce you to Chef Deborah VanTrece, my guest today. If I do this right, that finger. She is a culinary visionary who's redefining soul food. She started as a flight attendant exploring global cuisines, and now she's a James Beard Award-nominated chef, a best-selling author, a restaurateur, a caterer. And I love the fact that she's been building a legacy on honoring traditions while pushing boundaries as it comes to soul food and catering itself. So welcome, Deborah.
Thank you.
I'm so excited. I was telling people that I was having you on the show, and they're like, oh my gosh. And so hopefully people are going to tune in and listen to us and talk and ask their own questions of you. But what have you seen as culture? I mean, from a flight attendant all the way to, doing what you're doing now, how has global cuisine influenced what you do today?
I think it defines completely what I do today. Having the opportunity, or I'm not even going to call it an opportunity because it's a blessing, having that blessing to be able to travel and experience countries through, their rich culture, through their stories, has had a, lasting impact on what I do. It's given me an opportunity to, experiment with different cooking techniques, experiment with different holidays even, and definitely experiment with different foods and compare it with foods that I was familiar with or foods that I grew up with, and just putting the two together.
Is there any one culture that you've really taken a liking to incorporate into the soul food that you cook now?
I don't think so. I can't sit here and say that there's one particular culture more than any other culture that I utilize more. I'm studying every day. I'm trying to figure out every day, where's my next place to travel? Where should I go next? So it's always something new. It's always a learning experience.
So, and I guess I probably should have started this question. The very beginning question is like, okay, define soul cuisine and what that means to you, and what you cooked before and what you're cooking now. How has that changed as well?
I think it's more experimental now than what it was. I grew up on traditional soul cuisine. And the things that I have done with it, are sometimes shocking to me when I sit and think about it. But when you get to the root of it, and the root to other cultures and their use of particular ingredients, there's a lot of room for creativity, a lot of room to grow. So, now I push the boundaries of creativity. I don't think that any particular food was meant to be stagnant. I think, we should all just keep moving with it and learning and having fun with it and creating new dishes and new recipes.
Now, because you do catering and as well, so is that menu, is the catering also follow what you do in the restaurant, the soul cuisine, and that's what people are hiring you to do as a caterer, or are you incorporating other kinds of dishes into that catering arm?
I incorporate other dishes. I mean, I can do them both, but I honestly get a lot of calls, a lot of people who are looking to specifically have a menu created the way that I create them. I would prefer, I don't I shy away from sending you a form that says, you can have choice A, B, C, and this is it, because I think, we should take into consideration each person's personal taste, their personal vision.
Mhm.
So, for example, a couple of years ago did a wedding, and one person was from the South, the other person was from India. And they wanted me to combine those two cultures together and
Mhm.
create this amazing dinner and reception that their guests would not ever forget. So that makes it super, super fun for me when I get that opportunity.
Yeah, no, that's exciting. And I'm curious, were they from Southern India or were they from Northern?
No,
Did it?
they were from Southern India. That the
Okay.
other person was from Georgia,
Okay.
in Tennessee. Yeah, that's when I say the South. I have
Right.
Southern
Yeah.
India and the Southern United States together. But
Would-
it's a lot of fun. It's a great challenge, and it's become what I pretty much have mastered. I'm very good at it. I'm very good at it.
So when you're doing that, where do you start? Like when you're going to combine those two things, do you look at the spices and the typical ingredients that they use in their dishes, or do you look at like what the bride and groom's favorite dishes were growing up? How do you start that to combine that?
Well, sometimes, it come from different approaches. Sometimes
Mhm.
the client is willing to tell me, or there's specific things. I had one woman who's a bit of a foodie, and her reception was about her travels, and they went all over the gamut. So it was up to me in that instance to, not only formulate recipes that, kind of worked for where we were in the South,
Mhm.
but also that were cohesive as a unit. When you looked at the whole meal, it made sense. Um, Other times it is me, looking at what the traditions are of a particular culture, what traditional food you have,
Mhm.
and then comparing it or thinking about, food that um, is indigenous to the South or, to the United States, and just seeing where they can be interchanged, where ingredients can be interchanged. Something simple, is when you look at arancini and you look at rice, when you look at grits and you look at polenta, um,
Mhm.
and it can broaden itself even more. So, those are kind of the things I look at, and also, the spices, like you mentioned, what spices they have. Um, I enjoy tasting all types of spices to see, what it reminds me of, what I think it could be good on, and then
Mhm.
I just go for it.
That's awesome. And that takes practice and skill set and a palate too, because a lot of people just don't, don't smell it, don't taste it the way that a lot of people
Yeah,
do. And so thank you for that, for providing
yeah,
that for
yeah,
us. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, so it's Black History Month, and I'm excited that you joined me for this last episode of the month on this. But you also said, so we talked about Southern in India and Southern United
Hmm.
States. How is soul food different than Southern food? Because you have said that every culture has its version of soul
Hmm.
food. So
Hmm.
how do you define that? And because I'm going to say that probably some people may think that soul food is Southern food,
Hmm.
Southern United States. Is there a difference?
I believe there's a difference, and I think it depends on who you're speaking with. But when you're speaking to me, I do definitely believe there's a difference. I think soul food is, you know, let's say maybe a product of the South, but
Mhm.
it's not defined by the South. During the migration, you had, you know, African Americans traveling, migrating north, traveling all over. So even now, we may have come from, Southern roots or those Southern recipes, but then you got where you were going and you start using the things that were around you or picking up
Mhm.
bits and pieces from cultures that were now surrounding you that might not have been surrounding you in the South. So soul food becomes even regional. It's not necessarily just the South. You know, there's things that I'm originally from the Midwest. There's things
Okay.
that I am fond of, combinations of, typical soul food that I'm fond of, that when I go somewhere else, that's not the way they do it. They do it somewhere else. So I don't think they're the same from that standpoint. I also think that soul food is something, it came out of several things. It came out of strife. It came out of, these are leftovers and we have to make something good happen with them. And we did. It tells a deeper story than just it's food that was grown in the South and we ate. It comes from, people who, wanted to, I believe, take back, you know, their lives a little bit. And in their food, it had been given, almost like a bad name. And the idea of, claiming it is kind of how that term soul food came into play in the first place,
Mm-hmm.
because it came from inside. It came from the soul, which is a good thing.
Yeah. Oh, I love that, because and I feel like you can taste more flavor and you can taste the soul or the love of people who are
Yes.
making the food for you
Yes.
when they love those ingredients and they know where it's coming from.
Yeah. Yeah. And they've been taught and handed, these techniques for years, knowing, okay, flavor. I tell people, any group that can make pig intestines delicious, you've got to say something about that. I would have hated to be the first person who decided this would work, but through trial
Exactly.
and error, they've made it work. They've made it work. And it's much harder to do that than to, do a filet mignon and make it taste good.
Right. Yeah. Oh, I don't think I would, if you told me that's what I was eating, I'm not sure that I would,
Yeah.
say, yeah, let's eat that. Right.
Yeah.
But I mean, and that's looking at it when you're thinking about sustainability wise now too, is like,
Mhm.
it's like using the whole animal, right?
Yes.
And figuring out how to
Yes.
do that. And
Yeah.
because it was a sense of like, we don't want this to go to waste. Right.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Well, it was a sense of nourishment,
Right.
for slaves. But then you see other countries, that's not necessarily how they were looking at it.
Hmm.
That was kind of a light bulb moment for me at one point, traveling to France and realizing, that I'm looking at chitlins, um, and they're being made into a sausage, and it is like a very popular dish, and I think
Hmm.
the Normandy area of France is very popular.
Interesting. Yeah. Because it would not be something that we would normally think. I think Terry Koval is the first that has introduced me like to pig ears and,
Yeah.
eating
Yeah.
those things. And
Yes.
so I'm like, okay, Terry, if you're making it taste good, I will try it. Because I trust you.
Yeah.
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 So your dishes have incorporated some very unexpected flavors, which kind of, and I have not eaten them myself. So this is just from third party hearing this. So
Hmm.
I need to get back down to Atlanta and come to your restaurant. But people have said unexpected flavors, and which we've kind of been talking about that. Can you share a story behind a dish that perfectly represents your soul food philosophy? Is there anything that does?
Um, wow. I think one of the most popular items we have, um, which has been on the menu at Twisted Soul for years, is
Okay.
hoisin oxtails.
Okay.
Oxtails are not traditionally something that, has an Asian flair, even though there's Asian dishes with oxtails, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Um, a lot especially here in Atlanta, they think oxtails, they think Jamaican culture, because
Okay.
it is pretty well known that, a lot of the food that Jamaicans, kind of call their own, one of them is oxtails. I grew up in the Midwest, far away from Jamaica and most of the Jamaican culture, but I also grew up on oxtails. Putting all that together and then realizing too, well, Asians had oxtails also. what can I do different than what has been done or what I grew up with? And that's where I kind of developed this hoisin glaze oxtail by using, Chinese 5 spice and fresh ginger and all of that to turn it into something a little bit different. We grew up on neck bones and potatoes. Neck bones
What
are
was the first one?
neck
Bones?
Neck
Okay.
bones, yes. So
Okay.
neck bones, definitely it's the neck of the animal, so it's bony, but it's usually a lot of meat on it. Not a crazy amount, but you have to pick through it and pull the meat. It's a pain. So again, that was a cast off. We're finding it now. I'm finding it in more of the mainstream restaurants than I could ever imagine. That this is something now that's just coming. But generally, most of those cast-offs were served with potatoes or rice because they were cheap, and they were pretty standard. Potatoes, rice, grits. That's the other one. We have been doing a dish with lamb and lamb neck bones. So we're doing lamb neck bones. And instead of potatoes, we're doing potato like a saffron and potato gnocchi. So that's how I get my neck bone and potato in, but utilizing spices, that are more Mediterranean, is how I decided, I wanted this lamb to be presented, and it's a lamb neck bone, but I grew up on pork neck bones or beef neck bones. I just now start hearing about, lamb neck bones. Well, heck, that makes sense. But yeah. Right. So it's basically another form of a neck bone and a potato, so that's how a lot of the dishes, I look at what my tradition is. We eat fish and spaghetti from the Midwest, fried fish spaghetti, because the Italian influence comes in.
Wow.
In the Midwest. You had the mafia, the Italians, all in the Midwest. And so that's kind of where, that has come from, is that influence from the Italians. So in the South, I know it's fish and grits. In the Midwest, it's fish and spaghetti. But the spaghetti we usually made was meatless and a little bit of spicy, which reminds me of the arrabbiata pasta sauce that Italians used in the first place. So that's kind of the revelations. They're not really big revelations. It's just I put thought behind it. And, sometimes I wonder why. Why did you come up with this? Yeah. But I do, I like to do a lot of research and even understand how particular dishes or spices just came even into existence,
Yeah. And when you think about it, it's like mind-boggling. Like, even there's one called Carrageenan, which is but it's from a seaweed. I'm like, how did you figure that out to go make that as an additive in things, right?
Yeah.
It's intuitiveness and trial and error, right? I'm like, I see this. And yeah.
And I think it's people utilizing things in their countries and their regions, and then realizing, wow, look at what I can do to this. And then basically just old fashioned, it traveled from there to here. And then someone else picked it up and came up with additional things. So, I think when you look at the world of culinary from that perspective, there's no end to the creativity you can have with it.
Right. And it does make in that melting pot type of thought process, right? And like you're taking everything that you've learned, from your travels as a flight attendant and through what you do now, and tasting and flavors and things like, how can I add that to that dish, right? That might be something. We eat very simplistically in my house, so we're not chefs, so we don't try a lot of things. But when I'm out, I like to do that because it's like, where do you get that flavor from? Or I remember being in New Orleans and and I love horseradish and I love Brussels sprouts, but sauteing them together, I would never have thought, right? Okay, so you're a Black woman chef. How has that influenced your career? And you're in the culinary industry across the board. I mean, I was reading an article the other day about some female chefs in the UK that are coming out against some misogynistic, sexist stuff that was said in the kitchens there. And, 70 women have signed this thing. But you're a Black woman. So you have, I don't want to say those two things against you, right? But how has that influenced your career and opening these restaurants, opening this catering company, and now, you've got a television show?
Let's see. Wow.
That's a lot in one
Yeah, that's a lot
I'm
in
so
one
sorry.
sentence. And it's such a long period of time too,
Mhm.
that we're talking about, because I've been in the industry about 30 plus years now,
Okay.
actually. So where I started,
Congratulations on
where I
that.
am, thank you, are two completely different places. I did not realize how, I came from the space of a flight attendant, an international flight attendant to boot. So it was a very female forward environment, lots of women. There were men, that were getting involved when I first started. So by the time I left, it's actually quite a few of them. But just a melting pot. And fast forward to now, I'm in this culinary realm in the South. And definitely, it was an eye opener for me. Misogynistic, yes. Racist, yes. All of the above. But I think, my background of being around all types of people, all types of culture, always kept in the forefront. My faith in security in who I was and what my intentions were, what I wanted to do, and just constantly focusing on making myself better, competing with myself, not with other people. The
Okay. Yep.
competition was for me, within me. I took on the task of deciding, I wanted to do soul food and do it differently. At that particular time, it wasn't a lot of that happening, but it was kind of my answer to soul food being kind of cast to the wayside. Thought all you have to do is put what you learned in culinary school into what you've grown up with, and put those two together, and you're going to be pretty dangerous, because it's really the story I'm choosing to tell was a story that exclusively belonged to me. So I believe it set me a little bit apart, but more than that, just the maturity and the determination to break down barriers, and definitely not shun away from them. It's like just to keep pushing and moving forward. Now in the space I'm in now, I try to use my voice more to help those who are coming behind me. So their journey is not as hard. Not saying it's going to be an easy journey, because it's very competitive out here, no matter who you are.
Right.
But it is still inequity, in people, for people of color and for women, in the culinary world. So he's like, buckle up, girl, and just, just keep moving, keep moving.
Yeah. Well, that ties in the fact that you said you want to make it easier for people that are coming behind you. And there was a New York Times article from, I think it was 2018, on female chefs and female chef partners, right? And it was saying that mentors were few for the lesbian chefs as they came up the ranks. And it seemed that male chefs was more likely to give opportunities to a male cook than a younger, who looked like that chef himself, right? Yes. And you shared in that quote that I got from you on that was that the situation is now reversed, and that fewer men are applying for jobs in your kitchen, saying they tell me that the idea of working under a lady chef, they just can't deal with it. I mean, that was 6 years ago, if I do my math correctly. Yeah. Do you find that the same now?
Right now, I have an all male kitchen.
What? That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Now it's the opposite. I have a hard time finding women.
Really?
Yeah. And I think, part of it is the independent spirit.
Mm-hmm.
And the other piece of it, I think, women sometimes, and I don't mean this across the board,
Mm-hmm.
but, if most chefs, the new up and come, they're younger, um,
Mm-hmm.
just like, and I don't want to be offensive, but, my daughter's in the business with me also.
Okay.
And so there's this mother-daughter thing. And when I have young women, there kind of becomes almost that role also,
Mm-hmm.
so they become combative sometimes, just combative,
Mm-hmm.
and I expect that because, I was combative when I was younger. So it's not something that is wasted on me, and I'm patient with it, but I have my moments where I know, okay, they're not gonna be here long because they have to get out there and see what it's like sometimes, and then
Mm-hmm.
realize, okay, what I have here, is someone who's willing to put the work in to try to
Mm-hmm.
get me to a better place. And I always hope, no matter what, that anyone who's worked for me, male, female, whatever, they leave here better than what they were. That they did learn something for me. It's like that's my goal. That's always my goal. It just so happens right now, uh, I'm not the easiest chef to work with, because I am excited always about what I do. I want my staff to be excited. And I think it
Mm-hmm.
shows in what we present to our customer. If you're
Mm-hmm.
not excited, if you're not willing to learn, if you're not willing to push yourself, I'm real honest, this is just not the kitchen for you. So right now I have, um, really a little hodgepodge of men. And I think a lot of it comes because no one believed in them, and
Mm-hmm.
they're, I do, and I'm willing to teach and show you everything I know. It's like I just need you to have the open mind and be willing to learn and expand on what you already think you know.
Right.
So right
Yeah.
now it just happens to be, an all male back of the house.
I have a friend this just popped into my head who has a son with disabilities, and he's going through culinary school in North Carolina. And he's reached out to a couple of different restaurants, and they brought him in to do some things, like, oh, like he does prep really well. I mean,
Hmm. Hmm.
and then they ghost him. And they're like, yeah, we've got a spot for you here. And, we think you'll be great. Oh, but chef's traveling right now. We'll call you back in a couple of weeks. And he's just, and his mom is my Pilates instructor. And she's like, he's a big boy. If you don't want to hire him, let him know. But
Yeah.
if you
Yeah.
trust him and he gets the job done, then why can't you?
Yeah.
I'm like, I love your philosophy there, because to me, if he's doing the work,
Yeah. Yeah.
that you want him
Yeah.
to, then give him the
Yeah.
chance.
Yeah. Yeah. Because, I mean, as quiet as it's kept, we chefs try to pretend like it's rocket science. It really is not. It's not. Okay. It's really, if you can chop the carrot the same way every day, and I need a
Mhm.
million carrots done, wow, okay,
Right.
great.
Right.
If it's so many like little tasks,
Hmm.
that are like needed. And you really, for me, what I need is someone with a willingness to learn, who will
Hmm.
be here on time and ready to go.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. And
Yeah.
after that, I can work around the rest of it because I will teach you, whatever it
Hmm.
is that I need for you to know. And you'll watch
Right.
me because I don't, I'm very big still of I won't ask you to do anything that you won't see me doing myself, even to this day, with the
Hmm.
TV show and with the this and the James. It doesn't matter. You will
Right.
see me scrubbing the floorboard. If I look down, everybody's busy and it's dirty. It's not like they'll panic. Oh my God, no, she's on the floor. It's fine. I might need help getting back up, but it's fine.
And it's, in some this day and age too, is, I mean, it's like if they're willing to do the work and they do the work well, I mean, you can hire you can, like you said, you can teach,
You can
maybe
teach.
they don't have this one skill set at this moment, but they've got the personality or the drive
Yeah.
that you're looking for.
Yeah.
You can teach them how to dice a carrot a specific way,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
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 Yeah. Or, I mean, it's so many things that
Right.
are involved in, the food world, the
Mhm.
aspect of not just catering, but the restaurant industry. It's just so
Mhm.
much, you know, and it,
Yeah.
it takes all types of skill levels, to
Yeah.
accomplish what we are trying to do.
Right. There was a chef that I met in Dallas a couple of years ago, and it was during COVID, and he had a help wanted sign out on every
Hmm.
platform he could get. And a young man, I don't know how old he was, but from whose only culinary experience was with the Waffle House.
Yes. Uh-huh.
But he's like, he shows up on time. He does his
Yeah.
work. He knows how to
Yeah.
juggle all of these things. He's like, I can teach him, because this was like a Ritz Carlton. He's like, I can teach him the
Yes.
rest.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I
that's what
had
he needed. Yeah.
a gentleman work for me, arrogant young man he was, but he was, from Waffle House. And people don't understand, if you do breakfast or brunch at all, it is very difficult. It is very difficult because it usually people don't want to sit and linger. They want to get it fast. They want to eat it hot, and they're ready to go. And you've got them coming in left and right. So at a point I understood, for brunch, I need a Waffle House cook. I need someone who can just really crank out eggs quickly and do them right. Um, and Waffle House has some of the best people for that. But this gentleman in particular worked with me, and he thought I was just really like a hard butt, like, okay, she's just so hard all the time on us. She's so hard. Um, but he worked, and then he decided, okay, I'm gonna move. I'm gonna go somewhere else. As it ended up, he started working at a Michelin star restaurant in California. He called me up one day and said, I understand why you were so hard on me. I understand what you were saying about being excellent and being proud. And I thank you. I thank you.
Wow.
And I have that story over and over again. I have a gentleman now who originally was from Waffle House. And the most fulfilling thing is, he'll come in one day and say, I've got a special in mind. What if I did this, this, and this? And it's so far ahead of what a Waffle House could ever think of, to know, okay, so yeah,
Hmm.
it works. And,
Right.
and I am an open book. Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay. So soul food and you've spoken about this before, soul food and Black chefs not always getting the recognition that they deserve.
Yes.
Is that, I'm going to say it's still happening, right?
Yes.
And what steps do you think need to be taken to help make that change and continue pushing that forward?
Well,
Getting
I
that
think
recognition.
we have our allies.
Mhm.
I think the James Beard Foundation, I have to give them their props because they have done the work in trying to make sure that there's some more opportunities, more equal opportunities for chefs of color and for female chefs. There's quite a few organizations, especially amongst the women, that are promoting women and women in the culinary field and trying to give them education and the tools that we need to, try to overcome some of those inequities. So I think we need to continue to see those programs to be able to utilize them and have them offered. I also think it's important for the chefs who have made progress to always do what they can to help those that are coming from behind. For as far as encouraging and mentorship, that's like I am huge on the importance of mentorship, and for people, excuse me, who look like you to see you, to be visible and to be there and to be seen and to be willing to help where you can, because sometimes it's just a little bit of advice that someone needs, and just knowing someone takes the time to care is really I think some days what helps them to get to the next phase.
Just having that ear, or that, like, a 5-minute conversation can help in so
Yeah.
many ways as
Yeah.
well. And
Yeah. Sometimes it's the simplest answer, but
yeah.
you can't see the
Yeah.
forest for the trees. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, and I know you and I are both members of 𝐸𝐷𝐷𝑒𝐐.
Mm-hmm.
How do you think, the importance of that, in elevating, 𝐸𝐷𝐷𝑒𝐿 and women in culinary as well,
Mm-hmm.
through 𝐸𝐷𝐷𝐿 and other organizations like James Beard? What steps do we need to take? I mean, is there anything that we need to be doing differently?
Well, I think a big move for 𝐸𝐷𝐷𝐿s was to open up the application process, where
Mm-hmm.
it was a little bit easier.
Yes.
It started out, someone has to recommend you. That means you have to make yourself visible to someone who probably is not looking in your direction.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think, and I've seen the changes, at least here in the Atlanta chapter,
Mm-hmm.
on what can happen once we did that. I think it allows us to see or be exposed to some of the best that are out there. And even be exposed to those who we didn't know even existed.
Mm-hmm.
Whether or not they are, ready to become a member of 𝐸𝐷𝐷𝐿s, because I am one too who think that it's important to become a member, that you participate a little bit. Go see
Mm-hmm.
come see. And I've told this to many people, don't call me telling me you want to do this, but you've never, because it's not a social club. It's
Right.
like, if you've never been to a meeting or an event or anything to see what the true purpose, what the work is about,
Mm-hmm.
then it's not, it's not a good thing. It's not, you need to, no matter what organization, know what you're doing before you decide, I'm going to hop on board. Because at that point, anything else, I feel like it's a resume builder, not that you
Right.
really care,
Yeah.
But opening it, that was a huge step. I think also organizations positioning themselves into places that maybe they didn't think were important before. Um, in schools, in high schools, there's culinary classes going on in the classrooms. As an organization, if you're wanting to, help, there's a good place to start, going into some of these inner city schools and, doing some type of programming where, these young people who are interested in culinary even know that you exist. So I think visibility is a key, to, and it's the responsibility of the organization. It's like, don't keep putting it on the people who don't know you're there. It's like, let's make extra efforts in making sure people know, hey, there's some organizations out here that will support you. And here we are.
Right, exactly. Because I don't even know who I put. Oh, I put it out to Cynthia Graubert. I'm like, Cynthia,
Mm-hmm.
who do I know? Who do you know? Because I became a dom in Atlanta as well, and now I'm in North Carolina. But so it's promoting yourself with the knowledge that you're not being selfish, right? You want to be known,
Yeah.
and you want people to
Yes.
help you grow. I mean, it's a
Yeah.
growth opportunity. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Twisted Soul Cookhouse and Pours, your restaurant,
Mm-hmm.
has become a staple in Atlanta. What impact do you hope that it leaves onto the culinary world of Atlanta and, the United States or
Ooh,
the
that's another
world?
big one. I hope, my ultimate dream is that it survives way longer than I do. I hope it, also becomes a place, like a beacon, where young chefs, want to come and, want to put some time in here just to say, that they, yeah, I worked there from here to there, even like in the position of being somewhat of a launching pad. I think would be, kind of a dream for me, but I also know that I want it to constantly evolve. I don't want to be that classic restaurant that never changed the recipe, that's not what I do. And I don't want, to get stuck on like those hoisin oxtails. I'm like, they're cute for a while, but at some point, somebody needs to come up with a better one, or one that's just as good. And we revisit that, so I'm hoping that it is always going to be a place of growth, and a place of positivity, and where we have fun cooking, where we're dancing in the kitchen as we cook.
Oh, that's awesome. And your daughter, because you said earlier that your daughter's in the business with you.
Yes.
And then I want to tie that a little bit to the fact that you're an advocate for humane farming and sustainable agriculture. There's a lot of urban farms in Atlanta, in and
Yes.
around Atlanta, and a lot of them are Black farmers, people of color farmers.
Mm-hmm.
How important is that into the future, the culinary future of the restaurant, but then also this is, I guess, two-part question is like, what do you want your daughter to take from what she's learning now and continuing on the restaurant? That's two questions, I think.
Yeah. For the farmers, I want them to thrive, especially, I don't want to say not the rural farmers, but, there's so many food deserts, here in this big city, just like in many other cities. But, I know this city, and I know there's tons of food deserts. So, it's been nice to see these urban farms popping up like throughout, the urban areas of the city, so they can offer healthier options. If you can't get around, you can just walk there. And we need more of that. Often the neighborhood spot that you can walk in is just selling like sugary honey buns and potato chips, So to, have farmers that are coming up and putting small urban farms and offering, fresh fruits and veggies, I think we need to see more than that, because it is impactful on our underserved communities, in more ways than one. Just offering something nourishing, and we want to make sure we continue that piece.
Yeah.
My daughter, I started this, believe it or not, because she was born and I didn't want to be away from home so much. So I thought I'll go to culinary school, be a chef, right? Um, and that didn't quite work out the way I thought. But the good thing is, she was always able to be with me. So she has watched me, been by my side since I think I graduated at 2, when she was 2 from culinary school.
Okay.
She's been by my side this whole time. And she's had the opportunity to see me build, from nothing to where we're at now. With that, she's also had an incredible food journey. For a young African American woman, it's like she has been exposed to so much, and now she has leaned toward the cocktail side of it. But the way, I'm very proud of the way she addresses that also, because she has the same spirit with what she creates that I have on the food side. She has that same spirit. She's making, her own shrubs, and she's producing this. And, her big thing now, she's growing a lemon in her apartment on a lemon tree, but just, having her understand a little bit more about food systems and history and culture. I hope she continues to do that, and she continues to share her knowledge too with who, like, whenever she has children. God forbid, God help us, but when she has children, and just even with her, she acts as a mentor, even though some of the people she's working with are the same age or older than her. She's been around for a long time. So,
Yeah.
she's got, the ability to mentor some souls also.
That's awesome. She needs to go plant her lemon tree in a sip of paradise down in.
Yes.
So the farm for the bartenders.
Yeah.
Yes.
She's familiar with that too. Yeah.
Okay, good.
And
All right,
I'm
awesome.
sure that's actually helped to influence her also. The young lady 𝐤𝐤 that has
Yes,
that.
exactly.
Yes.
𝐤𝐤's amazing.
Yes. Yeah. And she's a late dom now too. I don't know if you
Oh,
know.
is she? Yay.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Awesome. Yeah, I got to tour it a couple of years ago. I met her, I interviewed her on the show, and then I went to Atlanta and I got to tour the farm. So she's amazing what she's doing.
Yes.
Okay. So to close this out, and to close out Black History Month, because this is the last Wednesday of the month, what does it mean to you personally and professionally, and how do you see food as a way to celebrate and preserve Black history?
Oh, I think, for me, it is extremely personal to preserve the legacy of Black food. It is a huge part of tradition. I grew up as an only child, and so food for me, it's not just, oh, it's good, it tastes good, and, it keeps us healthy, and we have to consume it. It was a way of gathering. I didn't get, have the brother and sister to play with, the opportunities to play with, my siblings. So my opportunities were given when they were celebrating, and celebrating always came with food. Good times for me, bad times, during birth, during death, there's always food involved. And that really, really resonates with me. Both my parents are deceased, but I feel like I have a lasting connection with them through food and their favorite things or recipes they taught me. And I show those recipes or write them or, save them so that my daughter knows these recipes too. There's, and that's not just within our tradition, that's within all traditions, anyone you talk to. Celebrations and food go together, and it all goes with tradition. Whether, it is a Muslim family, a Jewish family, a Black family, an African family. There are certain holidays even that you read recipes and they'll say, this is typically served during this particular holiday. Well, I'm all about that. It's like I've got, in my head, this is what you have Thanksgiving. You can add and subtract, but, there's particular things, Thanksgiving, Christmas, Easter, there's particular things that I associate particular traditions and food with. And it is my lifelong connection, I think, to generations and generations after me, because those are the things that we can preserve, those recipes, and through tradition, you will always know your great, 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 great grandmother, no matter what, because she's the one who first did that. So it comes with stories. It's just, I think it's super, super important. And a super fascinating way to preserve your history and your traditions.
That's awesome. I mean, food, it's the thing that we all have to do. We all have to eat, right?
We all have to. Yeah.
And we all celebrate, whether it's a death or a wedding or birthdays or holidays or whatever. And and a couple of weeks ago, my niece asked me for the cherry pie recipe that I've been making since I was a little kid. And it's from it's either Good Housekeeping or Better Homes and Gardens, the red and white checkered cookbook. And my mom's like, well, and it's that cookbook thing that we've peeled off and you put the piece of paper in it and peel it up. And it's like so tarnished in color and whatever. And my mom's like, this is it. And I'm like, no, that's the wrong one. I mean, I'm like, do not use this one. No, don't use this one. This is it. This is the one, right?
Yeah. I've got a couple that are in baggies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, It's awesome. Well, I
Yeah.
thank you so much for being here, but I also thank you for doing what you do with how you cook, how you teach, and how you represent yourself, your daughter, and everyone. So I thank you so much for what you do.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, everybody. This is Chef Deborah VanTrece, and I'm going to put, I didn't ask you this beforehand, but I'm putting up, here's the website to the restaurant in Atlanta. And where is it in Atlanta exactly?
It is in West Midtown, 1133 Huff Road. Yes.
Okay. Oh, over by all the art districts.
All the West Side things that are happening.
Yeah,
yes.
Exactly. Is the taco place still over there?
Which one? I would be saying now.
Taqueria del Sol. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
It's still there. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Awesome. Yes. And that's an easy way to cut through town if you need to cut through town.
Yes, it is. It definitely is.
Okay. Awesome. Well, Chef Deborah, thank you so much. I appreciate it. I appreciate your time and everything that you do. So, and everybody, thank you for tuning in. I will be back here next week. It's the month of March. And until then, stay safe and eat well.